Hi friends, it's Sajid and today I'm in a different location of my room. Anyways, today I will be doing my June wrap-up where I review all of the books that I read in the month of June. This month I read 5 books and that will also be encompassing the 2 books that I read for the Tome Topple Readathon. In the description down below I will leave time intervals if you'd like to skip to any particular review. Now the first book I want to talk about is none other than Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. I think it pretty much goes without saying that I freaking enjoyed this book as I do every other book in this series. As someone who is reading this for the very first time, I can definitely see why people cling to this as their favorite volume. Rowling, I think, masters the art of balancing intense character development with plot progression, which I think was showcased really well in this book. I mean, I loved seeing all the angsty romance stuff and the family stuff and all the friend stuff. It was just very cute, and seeing all of that play alongside the plot of this book, which I found very strong compared to Order of the Phoenix, was just wonderful. Obviously, I gave this one 5 stars. Moving on to more contemporary stuff, I read The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. This one is about a 14-year-old Native American boy named Junior who is growing up in an Indian reservation community in Spokane, Washington. He makes the decision one day to go to school outside of his reservation in a community that is mostly white, which bleeds into one of the main aspects of this book, which is community and acceptance. Junior is a minority in his own school and has to deal with the repercussions of that, and he also has to deal with the sort of rejection that he's facing from people in his own community because they see his going to school outside of the reservation as an act of betrayal. There were so many other themes running through this novel too, like alcoholism, tragedy, and poverty, all 3 of which were tied together in a very interesting fashion and I think played a very instrumental role in this novel. So although this book will appear bubbly on the surface, it does get really dark and real at times, and that might be something to consider. Aside from all the seriousness though, this is a pretty fun, solid read. Alexie's writing was simple and easy to consume. The characters and their relationship with each other were just so authentic and real and raw and just a joy to see. And the illustrations by Ellen Forney I think added a very interesting and important dynamic to this reading experience. Overall, I really enjoyed this and highly recommend it. I give it 4.5 stars. I also read Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. This one I actually read for Tome Topple, even though it wasn't on my TBR and it's not really a tome. I honestly thought this was going to be some cheesy story about this girl who goes to France and makes out with a bunch of boys under the Eiffel Tower, and that's okay, like, I was 100% here for that, trust me. But it ended up being so much more. This is the story of an American girl named Anna whose father recently comes into new money and decides to ship her off to France for her senior year. While she's there, she makes friends with a bunch of people in the school, including this one guy named Etienne St. Clair, who she wants to be all up on. But it's kind of complicated because he has a girlfriend and she's involved with this guy back home, and then this guy in the school likes her as well and she kind of likes him, and then her friend likes St. Clair and she don't want to do that because her friend likes St. Clair. Imagine there being like a buffet with different kinds of food and you want to eat all, but you know you can't eat all because like some of them when they mix together they won't taste good, but it's like you want Italian food but at the same time you want Indian food, but you can't eat curry and pasta, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's how I felt about it. Could be just because I'm freaking hungry. Fantastic thing about this book though is that it really captures the complexity of emotional cheating and wanting to be with other people when you're involved with someone else. And it also plays with the kind of understanding that we have on being in a relationship and having a crush on someone, and how all of that is kind of informed by the people in our environment. It's really difficult for me to put that into words, so to understand it, I would say maybe you should read the book. A theme that was very prevalent throughout this story though was change and how scary it can be. And I think what this book intends to teach young people like myself is that even though change is hard and difficult and scary, it's something that is inevitable, something that everyone has to deal with, and it could ultimately end up being rewarding. All jokes aside, I gave this 5 stars and I highly recommend it. The next book I read this month was Winter by Marissa Meyer, which is the 4th and final book in the Luna Chronicles. This one I also read for the Tome Topple Readathon and it took up the majority of my reading, which is why I didn't read anything else. Basically, I'm going to be doing a review for this entire series, so I'll be very brief, but overall I found this to be a satisfying, conclusive, and fun end to what has been a really great series for me. However, that does not mask the multitude of problems I had with it. Starting off, Marissa Meyer crammed too much things into this book and none of the plot lines had enough time to flush out properly. Secondly, she focused too much on the revolutionary themes, which I felt took away from the characters and also took away from the uniqueness of the series. Like legit, I feel like if I was reading Mockingjay again. Usually in this series, the fairy tale parallels and references come very naturally, but in this book, the retelling of Snow White felt very forced, especially the scene with the old lady and the apple. That was just really stupid. In short, this kind of disappointed me a little bit, so I ended up giving it a 2.75 stars. The final book I have to talk about is Fairest by Marissa Meyer, which is the prequel to the Lunar Chronicles. This novella gives us the backstory and the history of Levana and how she came to be such a fucked up sociopath, to put it most accurate. I really enjoyed this book, which is why I'm glad I read it after winter and not before. Basically, this book will give you a better understanding of Levana and her motives and create a wider context for the series. Looking back on the series now after having read this, I feel like Levana packs a more powerful punch for me. And honestly, with that in mind, I felt like this book, instead of being a separate novella, should have been incorporated into the series, because in that way Levana would have had a much more strong presence. Without this, she was a very one-dimensional villain who just the motive is to kill. But with this, you get to really understand who she is and where she came from and why she's like that. Overall, I ended up giving Fairest a 3.5 stars, and I highly recommend it if you're considering the Lunar Chronicles. The best time to read this is between Cress and winter, but I read it after winter and I don't think it really matters. So that's everything I read in the month of June. In the comments down below, let me know if you've read any of these books and if you have any thoughts on them. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and until next time, inshallah, keep reading.